Welcome to Native Bidaské, Native News Online's weekly spotlight on the people making news and leading change in Indian country.
Welcome to another episode of Native Bidaské. I'm your host, Levi Rickert, and it's Thanksgiving week. And so, as you're enjoying family, and I know Native Americans, each one of us celebrate it maybe a little differently, different families around the country. But this is still a lot of people are off work, so you have time to really sit back and watch this Native Bidaské. So we have a really special guest today, Joey Clift, and he has a film out called Pow. So I want him to tell us all about Pow. And welcome to Native Bidaské, Joey. How are you today?
Oh yeah, thanks so much for having me. I'm so excited to chat. POW, I'm the writer-director of POW. It is an animated comedy short film about a young Native kid trying to find a place to charge his video game console at a powwow. And I'm an enrolled member of the Cowlitz tribe, and I grew up on the Tulalip Reservation about 45 minutes north of Seattle. And it's really based on my experiences being dragged by my mom to powwows when I was a kid.
Yeah, and tell us about those experiences. Did you like going to powwows? Did you at the drums are pretty vibrant and the dancing and I tell us about that experience as a child from yourself. Then we'll get into more about the film.
Yeah, for sure. I think, like a lot of folks, my experience with powwows when I was a kid was I didn't really know why my mom invited me to them. I think that a lot of kids growing up don't necessarily know where they fit within our traditional cultures. And so as a kid, I sat in the bleachers, played Game Boy, and it was to the point that I looked at myself as being a gamer before I looked at myself as being native. My mom would literally come in and like smudge the corners of my room while I played Grand Theft Auto, which if you've ever played any of the Grand Theft Auto games, you get it. And then as I grew older, I actually did an internship with my tribe where I went on the canoe journey, which is a really great Pacific Northwest event that happens every summer. And that summer involved a lot of trying to find places to charge my phone in different tribal centers around the Pacific Northwest. And that also allowed me to just like have a lot of conversations with other Native folks from youth to elders about like why we celebrate our culture and the importance of our culture. And it really enlightened to me like the how much activism and fighting and work went into just us being able to celebrate our culture and go to things like powwows in the first place. And when I, learned that and had a lot of those conversations, it really reframed what my mom bringing me to powwows was when I was a kid. Like it wasn't her just trying to bore me. It was her trying to create like another link in the chain of Native folks fighting to celebrate this beautiful culture that we all have. And, looking at it like that, it became just the coolest thing ever.
Yeah, talk about the challenges and importance of ensuring cultural accuracy was fed into Powell, the film, both visually and thematically.
POW, I'm really proud to say we had like a largely indigenous team. We had a ton of really great Native folks, in front of the camera, we had an all Native voice cast. And then behind the scenes, we had, myself, I was the writer director. We had Vera Starbard, who is a writer from Raleigh Denali, who was a consulting producer. Morgan Thompson, who's a member of the Cherokee Nation, who's this fantastic animation artist. She's, I think, the only Native to ever win like an Annie Award, which is, one of the highest honors that you can get in animation. And she played a really big hand in the the visual development of the film, and then did some animation and storyboarding and stuff. And we had brought in a lot of members of the Spirit Rangers team, which is a Netflix show I worked on, to do things like composing and sound design. And so it was important for me to have Native folks working on the production in an artistic capacity. But in addition to that, we worked really hard to have consultants. Like we had a member of my tribe, Suzanne Donaldson, who's an expert in all things Cowlitz culture, consulting on all the coastal Salish aspects of the film, making sure that the powwow looked right. We had really great men's fancy dance and a women's shawl dance consultant to make sure that all the powwow dances were accurate. It was to the point that they sent us like video of them doing their dances, which our animation artists literally like rotoscoped, like traced over to make sure that just every movement was accurate. And just like that was such an important part of this process for me is realizing that this is probably one of the first times that a powwow has ever been animated in U.S. animation. We have a sequence animated as ledger art, and this is probably one of the first times that ledger art has been animated. So, I just really wanted to make sure that we did all of this the right way with like, the goal being to create, funny, entertaining short, but also with, accuracy and making sure that we're honoring our people at the forefront.
And I love the accuracy because, as we all know, so often we have not been happy with how we have been portrayed as Native people. And to me, as we tell our stories, and that's one of the reasons I started Native News Online. We turned 15 in
Oh,
February,
yeah,
but
congrats.
yeah, yeah. Well, it was really just to portray the accuracy of who we are as modern society, and I think that's just so critical. Like I say, we haven't always been happy with how we've been portrayed in history, um, films, TV, etc. And so it's our time to tell our stories, and I'm happy you're doing this now. Uh, Joey, the film kind of seamlessly blends modern life, modern day society stuff with indigenous culture, like video games and powwows. How did you decide on that balance? How did you get that balance when you actually got down to making the film?
Yeah, thanks so much for asking that question. And just to follow up on what you said earlier, yeah, I mean, when I was a kid, most of the native representation that I saw in cartoons was like Bugs Bunny in a cowboy hat shooting at like 1800s native stereotypes,
Yes.
So, the bar truly was below the ground. So with Pow, I think for me, like we're native folks who are, alive in 2025. So like the traditional experience is the modern experience, right? So, for me, like the powwows that I went to as a kid, it's like, yeah, there were, really amazing traditional dances, drummers, and things like that. But there's also like people selling Indian tacos, there's also, cell phones, covered in like beadwork, cell phone covers. There's a lot of different aspects of our culture, and this is something that like I love about what I love about sort of contemporary native stuff is how it can kind of blend traditional things and modern things really seamlessly. So that was like a really big goal of mine in the short, is to not have it feel necessarily like a period piece, to have it feel like, oh yeah, this is like a powwow that you would go to in 2025.
Mhm. Well, that's great. Now, Paul uses a mix of pixel art, watercolor, and ledger style animation. Can you talk about why you chose those different styles and how they each convey a part of the overall story?
Yeah, I view the three different animation styles in the film as the perspectives of the different characters. So when we start the film, it's animated in this like 16-bit Super Nintendo video game style, and that to me is Jake, the young native kid's perspective on his culture, is through this very like video game lens. He'd kind of rather be anywhere else. And then once we get to the main powwow space, we shift to a kind of watercolor Japanese anime inspired art style. And to me, that represents Jake's parents, like the vibrancy and the beauty with which they view their culture. And then we have a flashback sequence for an elder character later in the film where we shift to like a ledger art inspired animation style. And to me, that's meant to reflect the layered views that the grandmother character has and the complex views that she has on her culture. And that's I would say that's like the super heady explanation. Really what this was like, as a director, sometimes you just take a bunch of stuff that you like into a bowl and stir it up and hope it tastes good. I am very happy about like the incorporation of all these different animation styles. And we had a really great animation production company called Flickr Lab attached, who they've worked with everybody from Micah Moore and Stephen Colbert and a lot of other folks. And they really I appreciate that they said yes when I pitched all these crazy ideas, and they were completely on board with figuring this out and doing it very seamlessly.
Yeah, and representation of Native voices in animation is still very limited. What role do you think films like POW play in shaping how Indigenous youth see themselves on screen?
Thanks so much for asking that. And I feel really fortunate in that I've been able to write on shows like Spirit Rangers on Netflix. I was a writer on Molly of Denali on PBS, and I helped create a native character for the show Rubble and Crew on Nickelodeon, which is a really big show within the Paw Patrol franchise that's based on my tribe. So I feel like a lot of what I'm trying to do is create the types of native representation that I wish that I had when I was a kid. Like, I grew up in the 90s, and I didn't, because I didn't necessarily see like native characters that I could relate to on, shows like that I loved, like The Simpsons, Family Guy, and things like that. I just didn't think I was like allowed to work in this industry. So a lot of what I'm doing in my career is trying to create characters to give like, native kids and native folks and reservations sort of the permission to dream that I wish I had.
Yeah, I get what you're saying. Is representation has been very lacking in with the rise of like reservation dogs and others.
Yeah.
So
It's like the past 5 years, stuff's gotten really good,
as Rutherford Falls. So as you were talking, I
Yeah.
was thinking, thank you for doing what you do, Joey. I mean, that's to me is just really critical, very important, so that we do have that representation. Hey, was there a particular scene or moment in the film that, especially is meaningful or emotional to you personally, for you to create?
Yeah, well, I just want to kind of reflect that back to you, and that I so appreciate everything that y'all are doing at Native News Online. And I mean, I've been following all the stuff that you've done since I was in college. So like, I appreciate y'all for like creating a platform to spotlight just cool Native stories, and it from a really authentic place. So thank
Well,
you for everything
thank
that
you
you're
for
doing, for
that,
sure.
Chi McGwitch. Yes.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, as far as the film goes, I mean, I think just the whole process was so emotional for me. I mean, part of it was there's a monologue at the end of the film where this elder character sort of explains her philosophy on her culture, which her philosophy explaining to this kid was, who just wants to play video games, is that the important part about your culture is showing up. Like, and that does not mean that you necessarily have to be like an expert singer or a master powwow dancer or an amazing beadwork artist. Like, literally sitting in the bleachers and playing video games at the powwow, that counts, and it's important to just bring yourself to your culture in whatever way makes you feel the most comfortable. And also, so I think writing that speech, that's a synthesis of like a lot of conversations that I've had with elders and other Native folks really over the past like couple decades of my life. And Vera Starbard was really useful in helping whittle that down. But I think that is something with a lot of these productions, is working on these things with other Native folks. We totally understand that this is probably one of the first times that me, like a Native writer director, has gotten the level of support to make an animated short of this caliber for Native folks. So there is this attitude of like, oh, we got to like hit it out of the park, and we got to make sure that we all are aligned on what this is saying and what this is trying to do. So yeah, writing that monologue and seeing it recorded for the first time by Angela Starts, who's a really talented actor who voiced the grandmother character, like that was really emotional. And then I uh, had the opportunity to screen this as part of a screening at Seattle International Film Festival on the reservation that I grew up on, literally 2 blocks away from the house that I grew up. It's the first
Wow.
time that like my mom had an opportunity to, come in and see one of my screenings in person in the, couple decades I've been working in the industry. And like, that was so emotional because it was me, in a real way saying thank you to the community that helped raise me and teach me all this stuff. And that was definitely something that was emotional. But yeah, there's a lot of tears that have been shed from production to screenings. I feel like I'm constantly trying to drink Gatorade to keep my electrolytes up so I don't dehydrate myself from crying.
No, you mentioned community, and as we know among Native people, community is everything, and it
Yeah.
is, and I really appreciate you showing gratitude towards that community to help raise you, and because of our history and what was done to us, and through boarding schools and wherever else, they
Yeah.
really try to strip us of our culture. Thankfully, some people held on to it and were able
Right.
to really help us embrace our culture once again. And in my lifetime, I've seen this resurgence of Native culture, and I just love it but you hit on it. It's really the community that has done that, has taught us how to, if I can even say it this way, how to be Native, right? How to be Indigenous, how to be Indian. If you say it that way, I'm of the generation. I still call myself Indian sometimes. People get, it's Native American, but you know what I'm saying. You know what I'm saying. It's that community, the sense of community that's so strong among Native people. So, yeah.
Yeah, well, I think I've dedicated a lot of my career to, like for my tribe, I mean, there was generations of people fighting for us to even get federal recognition, like
Sure,
we got our
sure.
federal recognition in 2000, and that was after like a 150-year fight of trying to get it. And like, that's like, generations and generations of Cowlitz folks, uh, you know, uh, fighting to plant trees whose shade that they knew that they would not live to enjoy, but the next generation would live to enjoy. And that's like a lot of what I'm trying to do with POW, but also what I'm trying to do more broadly is like I'm trying to like if I can make things like POW and work on shows like Spirit Rangers and Molly of Denali to make things a little bit better for the next generation and the next generation, it's like that's the goal.
Yeah, that's great. Hey, now, what message or feeling do you hope Native children and families take away from Paul?
Uh, Native children, I hope that what Native children take away from POW is that they just see like a funny character that they relate to, and they see characters that they recognize as being like the people in their community. I think that is something that I talk to other folks, in the entertainment industry, other Native folks in the entertainment industry about this, about like it is so cool that our generation of people, that like the younger generation right now is not going to live in a world where the only representation that they have is weird stereotypes. They have shows like Reservation Dogs, they have shows like Spirit Rangers, Rutherford Falls, things like POW. And like it's just going to be normal to them to have cool Native characters on TV. So yeah, I hope that Native kids see this and just look at it as any other cartoon that they love, and that they see a character that reminds them of them, and that hopefully teaches them a few lessons about the culture, but also just makes them laugh. And then for Native families, I guess I just hope that people watch this and get the messages that I'm putting forward. And I hope that like my goal is like a lot of the Native representation that I saw around Thanksgiving was like the Charlie Brown Thanksgiving special, right? And my hope is that for Native families that this kind of replaces that. So instead of watching this very broad representation of the first Thanksgiving, they can watch this funny cartoon about a Native kid at a powwow. And if I can do that, if I can like create a new tradition around the holidays to watch not just this film but other cool Native works that will come after it, like that's like that would be aces for sure.
Yes. Now, in the days of smartphones and people have cameras on their phones and shooting video, it's almost everybody wants to be a filmmaker or a journalist. And actually, I see some pretty cool TikToks by Native people. I mean,
Right.
we
Yeah,
have
Native TikTok is so great.
very talented people in Indian country. But Joey, what advice, given you've been in the business for what would you say, 20 years, what advice would you give emerging filmmakers or animators who want to tell their own Native stories, maybe for their own tribe, and in how might they be challenged by the industry? But what advice do you give them?
Yeah. So I grew up on a res. I don't have any. I don't have like an uncle who's a film producer or anything like that. I didn't have any connections in the industry when I first decided to pursue this career. I think that the best advice that I can give is to do it, is to go for it. If you want to be an animator, start drawing. If you want to be a comedian, get on stage and try to do some open mics. If you want to be an actor, try to take some acting classes. And I would say when you first start, you're probably not going to be great, and that's okay. I sucked for my first like 10 years of doing this, and but the way that you turn this into a career is to keep at it, keep pushing through. If your first TikTok that you post only gets 5 views, that's fine. You got to just keep at it and keep doing it, and eventually you'll create something that'll catch on. And then in addition to that, just be nice to people. Like this is the entertainment industry is like very much a community, and especially in Native Hollywood, the sort of the collection of Native folks in the entertainment industry, we all kind of know each other and we're all friends, and we all want to hire people who are like talented, but also people who are like nice. And
I
I think
love
it's
that.
important to, yeah, it's important to like be the type of person that you want to work with.
Yeah, yeah. I
So
mean,
yeah,
sometimes people think we have to be stoic and bullies, but we don't have to be. Nice goes a long way in modern days, as far as I'm concerned. I
oh
love nice.
yeah.
Yeah, yeah,
Oh yeah, I mean, one of the first questions whenever I'm like in a position to recommend people for jobs is like, are they cool? And cool is a low bar. Cool does not mean you have to be like the hippest and most fashionable. Cool is just like, oh, if I'm in a room with you for 8 hours, am I gonna be like annoyed, or am I gonna be like, oh, this person's
yeah.
not bad to hang out with?
And I go back to that word community. If you really
Yeah.
understand the sense of community, you know that community. We have to get along with each other, and
Yeah.
no one person has to have a big title or anything. No, it's just let's go do it, roll up our sleeves, and get this job done. And
Yeah. Like be a good relative, be a good community member for sure.
well, since it's Thanksgiving week, let's talk about Thanksgiving. How does Joey Clift celebrate Thanksgiving?
Honestly, this is going to be a little bit of a hot take. I I don't like Thanksgiving for what it represents, but
Yes,
I love Thanksgiving as an excuse to hang out with my friends and family and eat a bunch of good food. You know, uh,
I'm with you on that, brother.
yeah, it's like we all get the day off. It's like, I feel like for native, if you're at a Thanksgiving with a lot of native folks, there's probably going to be some you're welcomes thrown around, but it's like we're for sure going to make jokes, but it's like ultimately, yeah, I don't know. I love pumpkin pie. Pumpkin pie is great. I love that.
Yeah.
I love that tomorrow I'm going to go, do a nice Friendsgiving in Los Angeles with a bunch of friends. I'm going to call my mom, and I think that the community aspects of Thanksgiving is great. I just wish that native folks were celebrated a little bit more.
Yeah, and I love how the Macy's Day Parade, and we do that story about every year where they walk through, and here you have some of the descendants from some of the original people in the Northeast, and so and it gets really well read. That representation really matters, and we live in the days of anti DEI, and that's diversity, equity, and inclusion for those who don't know it, and anti woke, and hey, you know what? We're all in this together. There's no reason we can't get along. And I really enjoy talking to you, Joey, because you have a good sense of community. And I love that word nice. So thank you so much. Hey, tell our viewers how they can watch POW.
Oh yeah, for sure. When I just want to say one more thought on Thanksgiving is I really want to push for a campaign of on Thanksgiving, Native folks should be able to get 2 servings of pumpkin pie. We should just give us a
I
little
love it.
extra. We should be able to get just a little more cranberry sauce. I
With a
think that's
little
something
more
we should come up with.
whipped cream.
Yeah, just like a little, like not too much, but just give us like a 1.5 servings. But yeah,
I love it.
POW, you can watch it now on FNX, First Nations Experience. It's a fantastic Indigenous focused streaming app. And if you follow me on social media, you can follow me on Instagram at Joey Clift, or Threads, or you can follow me at Blue Sky, Twitter, or TikTok at Joey Tainment. There'll be links as to how you can watch it. But FNX, it's a free streaming app, and it also includes a behind the scenes making of featurette of POW showing how we made the film, a lot of the work that we went into it, and really going into like the care that went into this production. So definitely, give it a watch. I think you'll like it.
Well, thank you. We were talking to filmmaker Joey Clift, and thank you so much for coming on. Miigwech to you, and have a nice holiday. However you celebrate, Joey, have some pumpkin pie. So thank you for coming on.
Oh yeah, awesome. Thanks for having me.
And to our viewers, Miigwech for tuning in to another episode of Native Bidaské. And it's Thanksgiving week. However you celebrate the holiday, get with your loved ones, your friends, family, and you have good food. So we from Native News Online, I want to thank you for all of your support you've given us throughout the year. And I like to tell everybody this as I close out every Native Bidaské, to the elders: take care of those young ones, give them hugs. And young ones, you need to show the utmost respect to those elders. They keep us. They are our binding force in our community. And so, Miigwech, we will see you next week. Have a good holiday weekend.
Thank you for joining us. If you value our warrior journalism for Indian country, please consider supporting our work by scanning the QR code or visiting the link below.
please subscribe to our YouTube channel, follow us on social media, and sign up for our free daily newsletter. Chimigwech.